Now we finish this call with Rudi and Chrissy from LegendHasIT. They're going to summarize some things about community, the importance of mentorships, and you're going to hear a little bit about what they do inside their company. Enjoy. You are listening to the IT Path Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Morrison. Let's go and help you claim your journey into IT. And we're back with part 3 of the interview with security experts Rudi and Chrissy from LegendHasIT. Where we're picking this up right now is where Chrissy is going to explain a little bit why she thinks community is such an important part of her life and part of her job.
All right, so I think the most important concept for me is that the community is, for me, it's what makes or breaks my day, right? Like, it's what makes me happy or what makes me unhappy, right? I left a very unhappy community. I took this huge risk. I was living in Florida a year and a half ago in a job that I didn't like because the community that I was surrounded with is a lot of what Rudi was speaking to, like no intention of improving, lots of ego, my way or the highway, or this is how we've always done it. And that's not the kind of community that I wanted to be in, right? Like, so I did some introspection. I'm like, hey, what do I want? Like, how do I want to work? How do I want to live? Because it wasn't just my work community, it was my home community too, right? Like, so I had to figure out in myself what kind of community I wanted, because that's what had the biggest effect on my day-to-day, right? It wasn't my own self, it was those that I was surrounding myself with. So Rudi and I were working remotely together on a project, and he said, hey, you want to come work at LegendHasIT? And I said, okay. And I got in my car and I completely changed my community.
Wow. Change your lifestyle, everything.
I did. And I gotta say, it was one of the best things I've ever done for myself, because now I'm surrounded by not, like the same thing from my perspective for Rudi. I can count on him to keep me in check when I'm going off the deep end. I can count on him to be honest without, hurting. Like, it doesn't hurt my feelings because I don't know, it's just how I am, I guess. But I can count on him to give me the truth, right? But still respect me at the end of the day, and like want to keep, doing this crazy thing that we're doing. So, I've never been happier at work. I've never been happier in my home life because I looked at my community, didn't like it, and like, well, let me find what I want, and I just did it, and
that's good.
Great.
That speaks right there to you ladies out there who are thinking maybe you're going to take a step. Think about that too. Think about community. Think about, are you getting out of the current environment that you're in what you need to get out of it? It's like nutrition, right? Well,
exactly.
maybe I've got so much vitamin C, but maybe I'm not getting iron. Maybe I'm not getting potassium. People are like that for us because they can help speak to that.
Yeah. I mentioned I was working for that large bank, and I was around a lot of people. They were smart people, right? But they just weren't in the same mindset, right? It was very community oriented. We got together, we talked, and all of this stuff, and it just didn't jive with how I wanted my community to be, right? And my hair was falling out, I was stressed out, right? And they were just doing things the way that their community had been doing it for the last 150 years, right? And it was all bank. So, and I'm like, well, that's not the community for me. So let me move over here, because that's what it was. It wasn't actual work, because I was running a vulnerability management and a penetration testing team for, over 100,000 devices, right? Like, I was professionally challenged, right? Like, I had, the latest and the greatest tools. I had a team of very good pen testers and analysts, and I was given the tools I needed to do my job, right? I just didn't like the vibe of the community there, so
Sure.
I had to leave. And and one of
You
the things
recognized it. That's
exactly
a
right?
huge thing. Yeah,
And
that's a
that
huge
was
step.
yeah, and like that I left like more money than I had ever thought that I could possibly, like growing up the way I did, I was like, oh man, if I make $40,000 a year, I'm gonna be living like a king, and I was way beyond that, and I just walked away from it, right? Because to me, that wasn't worth it, right? You have to think about, hey, are the people you surround yourself with more important, or what pieces of what you're doing is more important. I think Rudi has this thing he says, I mean, correct me, I might say it wrong, but you're gonna get out of a job like benefits, pay, or what is it, like your work-life balance, right? Quality of life, right? And for me, quality of life, right, was the most important thing out of those other two, and I made that decision, right? So you have to think about who you are, what you want out of those that you're surrounding yourself with, and make a decision. And really, even if it seems like, in my case anyway, even if it seems like it's a huge risk, right? The payoff, like, when you find that community that jives with how you want to be, it is so worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so each of you, could you have one short story of how a person has influenced you somehow on your path? Call it a mentor or call it a coach, somebody specific that invested in you, maybe at a specific time, that like something happened because of that. Any examples?
Yeah, I think the hard part is trying to figure out which one out of the many, right?
Right.
And that in itself is sort of a blessing. But let's see, there Johnny Gutierrez, Senior Chief Johnny Gutierrez. He was my senior chief, and I was a first class, so at the time, so E6, and he was a E8. And so I was in the reserves. Won't state what happened. I mean, nothing too crazy, but I messed up, right? I messed up, and he was disappointed. And at that time, I was, I had a pretty good career at that point. I had awards. I was a mentor. Like, I had my own guys. There was 112 of us, right? And I was the LPO. So the only person above me was senior chief, and then the two officers, right? And so I was I guess at that point in time, considered the golden child. But not because I sought for it. It's just I was doing whatever I needed, but I did mess up. And he let me know, right? And he started off by saying that he was disappointed, right? That he held me to a different standard. And then this is why. Not just, hey, here's a qualitative statement, but he followed it up with a quantitative statement. This is why, right? Those that are working on the resume, you use that same framework, which is qualitative. They are stellar at scripting, and then you quantitative is going to be created 4 scripts in Python to do X, Y, Z.
Right. Something you can measure. Yeah.
Exactly. And he broke it down. And I feel bad, but I received it. Don't get me wrong, it's the military, so I won't receive it anyway. But intelligently, I received it. And so he's since passed away. I remember folding the colors at his burial, his ceremony. And so, but I remember him to this day, obviously, and that was an example. It's not enough for me to say it or somebody else to say that, look for those that sharpen you, right? But he executed. And so now when you ask me, I can reflect, and then I can draw that example. And that speaks more volumes than saying it all the time, is when you follow up with that action, right? It's hard to find. I do want to state, going back a little bit, is that community, when you break down like just the pure logic of why people hold information, Like imagine you're in a workspace. Hey, teach me this, right? Whatever it is, whether it's IT, cybersecurity, or something totally different. You go to a coworker, your boss or your lateral, or even down below. I need something, right? There's something innate in humans that we like to help each other. We get like we release endorphins, right? Like we're our biology is built for it, right? We get a little kick from it, a little high,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Break down the science, it's probably because if I care about you, even though we just met, prolongs our species. So we can tap into that in the workplace, and we reach out to somebody that doesn't reciprocate that. You got to break down the science, the logic, why that is. If I want to learn something in cybersecurity, whatever the field is, and I'm asking you to teach me what you do, maybe it's just this one tool or one thing, and I don't, then the only thing that I can come up with, right, is that either the opposite end is they're afraid that they're afraid of being found out, right? Like let's say
Imposter syndrome kind of thing.
And then they don't want anybody else to find out, or they don't want to be displaced. They're really good
Right.
at doing this, and then they're
Lock up information as a defense mechanism so that nobody can get rid of you, or
right. And so and then they're afraid of you displacing that, displacing them, really, right? And they're complacent. They don't plan on evolving, and to each their own. But talking about community, you run into that. You find yourself bumping into that. I worked in the banking area that Chrissy was talking about. I was making a lot of money every check, right? It was crazy. And I had a VP status, right? So I didn't understand the weight that had in the banking world, in the financial, like that is a thing. Like people give you the pat on the back kind of thing, like welcome, like, hey, you were in this status. It's like a rank, right? And to me, I didn't see it that way. I remember the day they announced it. It was a Teams thing, right? But there was like 135 people on that thing, right? And then like people were messaging me, and I didn't realize that I was only a couple months into there, and they announced this VP status. But I was still worrying about things because I had 3 teams, right? The WAF to endpoints, and there's things that weren't being taken care of. Like my unit of measure, my standard was that our thing is secure, and there's some anything. Right. While everybody was lax on this other end, and I'm grateful and thankful that I was able to put bread on the table at me. But it was a different way of thinking, a different way to sharpen steel. They were going off of metrics, making sure that the audits were green. Meanwhile, in the real world, like the bad guys, like we were taking it in the face, right? Literally, my title was for the secure edge, right? So everything between infrastructure and the physical internet. This is a multi-billion-dollar institution. So that just frames if you're in the world, meaning when you go to work, whether it's remote or not, and there's no flow of knowledge, then
red flags should be going up in your head, because that means you're locked up. You're locked up. You're in an environment where growth is going to be very difficult. You're in an environment where the team actually, because the opposite is true, like what we're saying about information sharing, locking it up makes people reliant on a person. And when you share information, you move forward. It's not that somebody's going to replace you. The team can be that much better, can grow like exponentially with the synergy of sharing information.
I like that, exponentially.
That's a drug. It's a drug for our teams. You know what I mean? A natural drug.
But you said it perfectly, exponential. So earlier I talked about free time, right? When you have free time, humans are really good at being humans, being creative. The next idea, right? Maybe they put something on the shelf and then they bring it back because now they have time. The same thing when you share information. Somebody taps me on the shoulder and is like, "How do you do this?" Now we have a team working on these things.
Yes.
Frees up my time. And then now I can pull something off the shelf that I really want to get to, or I have an epiphany and I have another idea. and then it's exponential, right? Like, so everybody, so as you move up in the ladder in your career, then you have to remember to give it back, because if anybody's asking you for help or for information, so to help them grow, you got to feed them, even if you can't do it at that hour, right? I tell my interns, anybody who's going to work with me, like, if you have enough, cojones to come up and ask me for something, right? I should have enough fortitude to give you that, right? If you're asking me, how do I do this? Teach me this. Then even if I can't do it now, then you know what? I can't, but keep me honest. Revisit at the end of the day after lunch, tomorrow, whatever it is, right? And you got to follow up, because you're just reinvesting. And then later on, they'll start doing the task that I find mundane, but it'll be new to them. And then I'll keep on going. And then they'll come right after me, and because they're giving it to whoever's after them.
Yeah. So it's like a glass of water, right? If you fill up the glass, you've got somebody pouring into you, and the glass gets full. Well, that person's still pouring into you probably. Where's the overflow going, right? It can't be selfish.
Yep.
Right? You can't go get some reservoir and store all this up and not share it with anybody. Naturally, it's going to pour over the edge of the glass, and you want to let that pour into somebody else, and replicate the same model that somebody's invested in you. You should be investing in somebody else. And that's naturally, when we do that in tech, when we do that in any field, it doesn't matter what you are. If you're a silversmith, and somebody's told you and taught you some tricks for working with fine silver, and you pass that knowledge on to somebody else, now you've got two people making really cool jewelry instead of just one, right? So you multiply the output by people. Eventually machines get built, and you think about how you free yourself up and automate certain things, and now you've got a plethora of fine jewelry that's being built because somebody invested in you, and it's like that exponential.
The more people want to work with you.
That's right. Yeah.
Same company, different department, but I've been blessed where I have sailors today, and both from my sailor days and then outside, where they're still in the same field, cybersecurity, that they'll shoot me opportunities, and then vice versa. Like I'll let them know, even if it's not directly working for me or with me. And I've been blessed. Case in point would be that banking opportunity in the first place. That started off as a contract, and then the VP of really underneath the sizzle of the whole entire bank, I worked directly with her, and she liked us so much because the way we worked. She goes, we need more of that y'all have in here, and that's why those offers were extended. So how this makes sense, right? It's not just a holistic, hey, feel good. It does pay dividends, because over time, people are going to remember your work ethic, all right, and how you work with them, not for them, or they work for you, like with them. That means something, and then they're going to reach out, even if a whole year passed by. Like, people will reach out on the LinkedIn or email,
That's
phone.
Right. That's
and
right.
You're going to have those opportunities. You're just adding to your bucket of good karma, if you will.
Yeah. And those contacts, like you said, I mean, they'll just last. They'll last for the rest of your life. Chrissy, what was a moment for you that somebody investing in your life made a huge difference for you?
So I already talked about Fawn, and I have another. So
Okay.
I'm going to go with my dad, actually. So my dad, I was born when my dad was still in his teens, right? And the only thing he could do, like, not, he was barely graduated high school when I came along. I think I was a whoopsie doodle. They'll tell me otherwise, but like, I don't believe them. But he became a cook, right? Because it was the most accessible thing. And he did that so that he could buy me diapers and formula and all that stuff, right? But then he became, unbeknownst to him, I think, like, I don't think he would ever admit to this, but he became my role model, right? Because he did that for me, he made that sacrifice for me. I don't think that's what he wanted to be when he grew up. Like, what 18-year-old wants to cook on a lawn? I mean, maybe he did, because I did too, but whatever. But so maybe he became a cook. But then he did that, and then he joined an apprenticeship program. He's like, well, if I'm going to do this, like, I don't want to make, at the time it was probably like $3 an hour. I don't know. He's old, but, because it's hard to buy diapers, $3 an hour. So I need to invest in myself. And he did. He joined an apprenticeship program and did that whole thing. And he took an alternate route, right? Same thing I did. I didn't go to college first. I went to the Navy and, got my education later, whatever. Mostly because of the role model that my dad was. But, he invested in himself along the way. He got this apprenticeship program, and then chefs, cooks have a tiered certification thing as well. There's a certified cook, and then certified executive chef, and then certified master chef. Well, he worked his way, got the certifications, did the hours, had the tutorship of other chefs, and became a certified executive chef, right? All while, I was growing up and stuff. And he realized, it wasn't his love, right? He cooked, and there's a lot of parts about being a cook that you don't like, right? Like doing the dishes and taking out the trash and working till 2 a.m. on Christmas Day. And he didn't like that, and he wanted to change it. But he had invested all this time in this profession, so he didn't want to give up that, experience. So he became a teacher at a community college, with 0 degree. He had no degree, just this apprenticeship program. And they hired him to be the chef instructor for this new hospitality program that he developed. And he started off he was the only one, and he built this program up. Like, it was just him teaching his class. It was like one cohort working their way through. And the program, I was 12 when he started that. Well, eventually the college was like, hey, this is growing. We have to, prove that we're qualified to teach these people this thing. So you have to get a degree, my dad. So he had to go to school. He went night school. So he's raising my brother and I, has his full-time job, and he goes to school at night, and he gets his bachelor's degree. And the program grows even more. Now there's more chefs. They built him this huge multi-million-dollar teaching kitchen facility, right? And so now it's grown into this thing, and he's like, and again, he's like, well, I didn't get into this because I love it. Now let me reassess what I want to do with it. And at the same time, the college is saying, okay, well, you really need a master's degree to teach, so we're going to make you get a master's degree. And now he's probably 15 years into working at this college, and they're like, you got to get a master's degree, bro. So he's like, okay. So he goes the master's degree. I don't live at home anymore at the time. I don't think my brother did either. He's working, and he's getting his master's degree, and it's in hospitality. But for his thesis, his master's program, he had to write a thesis. He designed a beer and wine curriculum to teach students about how to brew craft beer and how to brew wine. Because my dad really liked that. Even when I was a little kid, he built this shed in the backyard with these, and he brewed beer in this 8,000 degree shed, no air conditioning. He's brewing beer back there because he really liked it. So fast forward to his master's program, he designed this whole curriculum, and it was strategic, right? He's like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to take it and turn it into the school, and then I'm just going to spend the rest of my time at the school until I retire doing this thing that I actually want to do. And he freaking did it. The school built him this multi-million-dollar facility. They reconstructed it and built him a brewery. It's beautiful, with the big,
That's
the big
crazy,
hoppers. They built him
So just imagine you're there and you're just getting college kids drunk and you getting paid for it.
His lecture podium is a bar. There's a bar with all these taps behind it. His students sit at the bar and he lectures, and it's like a real thing. He teaches them the chemistry behind it, the science behind it, how the fermentation works and all this stuff. And then also the costing and the selling, and you have to have this license and this, and even the creative part of it, oh, let's name this. But I've never seen my dad like his job so much as he does right now, because he's brewing his beer, he's doing all his little nerd science chemistry stuff, and then he's tasting all these beers and he's teaching people how to do it. And that to me, like, I know, like, not all of that was a technical investment in me, but at first it was, right? But he was just like, I took that, like I didn't want to be a cybersecurity or a computer person, like, from the time I was a little kid, like, I just kind of like fell into this because, I needed money, and the Navy's like, here's some money, just do this. I'm like, okay, I guess. So, I got there, and I'm like, well, I can't just keep switching careers every few years. I'll never get anywhere, right? So I reassessed myself, and I'm like, okay, I need to find the part of this that I like, and then invest in myself in that part that I like, right? So that's what I did. Like,
From
I
your
realized
dad's example, able
exactly,
to
right?
apply what you saw him do and his
Exactly,
passion, and then
yeah.
apply that to your own life.
Exactly. So, like, cybersecurity, like, wasn't my first. I love it now, but only because I realized, hey, I really like this automation part, and like maximizing the efficiency of all these tools, and like saving money for people, and like
Yes.
I
We
realized
like
that's
it too. The company I'm with, we love it.
yeah.
You guys have,
Like,
we didn't even talk at all about that. Rudy, we're going to give you a chance here to talk about that in a minute too. What all you guys do, but
yeah.
yeah.
But like, just it doesn't matter why you started into something. Like, it doesn't matter why I joined the Navy. I joined the Navy because I tried to go to college and I was failing. I had no direction. Like, I joined the Navy because I needed someone to yell at me and tell me what to do. But it ended up being like this thing that, like, I would move across the country to work with this one particular person that I has the same mindset as me. You know what I mean? Like, it turns into that. It doesn't matter why you start something, but figure out what parts of that really excite you, and then invest in that part, and then
Highlight,
keep going with
underscore,
it.
put exclamation points all around that right now.
Yeah, exactly.
What? Yeah. Like
Yeah, it doesn't matter
that's the
why.
important thing right there. And schools don't teach you that either.
No.
They kind of like send you down this rabbit trail.
Yeah, my dad, another little nugget of wisdom. I have all these stories. My dad said this, and I took it to heart. And my dad was like, "I was just saying that to be funny or something." I'm like, "Yeah, but it changed my life."
What?
But
the last 10 years of my life, I got to throw them away because you weren't serious.
Yeah. When I was 13. Yeah. But he always said, like, you can't, like, if you want to master something, you can't change what that something is, all the time. Otherwise, you won't master it. And then just show up. Like, if you just show up, you're better than 80%.
Oh, I know.
Of the people.
Sure.
And so I don't know.
All right.
Just
yeah. I don't know how many episodes I'm gonna have to break this up into, maybe 3. This has been fantastic. You guys have been so generous with your time with me today. There are a couple things I want to make sure we get to. One, the hierarchy. Rudy, you had mentioned the hierarchy. I want you to also be able to speak to LegendHasIT and what you guys offer. And then each of you, I'd like to hear what you think. Somebody who's interested in security, cybersecurity, what can I do right now to get started? Because people think I've got to go out and get an education and all that. But first, let's get to that hierarchy, Rudy, you had mentioned to me earlier today.
Yeah. And maybe not so much a hierarchy, but just the different like subgenres within cybersecurity, right? And a lot of these you can find in the IT tree as well. So backing up a little bit, like IT and cybersecurity, it used to be, different branches within the same tree, but now we're different trees of our own, right? Because they have so many splinters and directions you can go. Just because you're a web developer, and I use quotations, doesn't mean that you are a programmer, right? You could be, and you just be a different degree of web developer, right? So, but in regards to cybersecurity, I get asked a lot is, what kind of jobs are out there, because they're looking at the Indeed and the LinkedIn postings, and they're trying to figure out where's my niche, right? So some words of advice as you're shopping around to look at what is available in some of those job titles and those job descriptions. Do you have a
And don't look at the price tags. Don't look at the income. You got to ignore the income. You're just getting it. Just ignore it, what you see, because if you select a job based off of that, you're just going to associate it with the dollar signs, not the success and the learning opportunities and all that. But side note.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it is a factor when somebody's saying, hey, they want a senior level, but that pay is more commensurate with a junior level pay, right? But it shouldn't be what you're leading into. But Chrissy highlighted a little bit of what I said, the motivations for working wherever you work. One of them is money. And if that's what you're chasing, okay, but be true to yourself. Know that you put everything else in the back burner, and that was quality of life, benefits. You put that in the back burner. That's what you're doing. Yep. Don't be blindsided.
Health. Yeah, health.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Your trees.
My different branches within the cybersecurity tree are going to be, you'll see positions labeled as a cybersecurity analyst or operator, right? And I'll refer to them as analyst/operator. Those are we went over what a SIEM is, right? So security event incident manager, right? All the logs being aggregated, pumped, and pretty dashboards and what have you. So you're the consumer of that aggregation, that all that engineering that took to aggregate it, put the pretty picture. In some cases, you'll build dashboards, but the data's already there. You just got to make it prettier, right? And then what are you looking at? You're looking at things like that are relative to your environment. We call this an AOR, area of responsibility, right? So if you're in a financial institution, or that's what you're protecting, your logs should somehow map to that storyline, right? You shouldn't see a lot of, let's say, SCADA systems, which are going to be like industrial control systems for water, for air conditioning. You wouldn't see that, right? So just know your environment. Analyst operator is doing exactly that. They're analyzing and then they're responding. So think of that as akin to, let's say, somebody who drives a vehicle, right? The operator of the vehicle. But I mentioned a SIM. SIM is just a tool, and normally it's a VM, a virtual machine appliance that all the data is being aggregated to, and it has a web interface, so operators, analysts can do a thing. But who maintains that? This is the next type of branch. I refer to them as maintainers. Where that might map to when you're looking for a job, or it's going to be network security administrator, right? Or a system security administrator. Usually you have the administrator role tied somewhere in there. Think of those as akin to my analogy. If an operator analyst is the one driving the vehicle, maintainers are the ones that are like the mechanics, right? They're agnostic in most places, right? It depends where you go on the mechanic, but they know how things should work. They know the general parts, right? Not every oil change is the same, but they know that there's oil and combustion engine needs it, right? So they can figure it out.
Agnostic in that they can work on a variety of vehicles.
Right. And then, what they're working on, right, normally are security appliances. Sometimes it's network firewalls. Earlier we mentioned IDSs, intrusion detection systems. Sometimes it's IPSs, which is intrusion prevention system. Then it might be like a WAF, a web application firewall. They're the ones that maintain it. They're not the ones looking at all the analysis and then applying kill action, right? That's the analyst operator. They're the ones that making sure it's there. If you think about it, like, how did the analyst operator get a login in the first place? It's a maintainer who gives them the login, because they're the ones who control the system, right? And then the consumer is the operator. And then you have engineers and architects. This is more akin to the people who design the vehicle in the first place, right? They design how it's going to work, how an axle, combustion engine, from if it's a stick shift or not, all those parts, right, to get it to do whatever it's going to do, the whole system, right? So not just the IDS and IPS and firewall and the WAF, like I mentioned, but how they all work in conjunction with each other, right? And then how all those logs are going to be shipped, what type of network, subnetwork, and all that jazz, the mapping, the drawing it out, and actually executing it. And then they build like a blueprint and a kind of an operating manual, and they hand that over to the maintainers, right, who are maintaining it for operators. So if you think about in that construct as you're entering the cybersecurity world, you can make an adaptation for the IT world. That's kind of like these job areas that you be in. Just because you're a network firewall, security or engineer or administrator, doesn't mean that you're out there punching packets, right? Like you're not just constantly updating firewall rules and stuff like that. Usually that analysis, whoever's going to deem whether there should be a rule on the daily is going to be an operator analyst role, right? Whether they have the ability to actually execute it on the appliance, they might not. They might have to kick you a ticket or kick a message to the maintainer who executes it. But an analyst did the analysis. And then you have this other role, which is going to be, I call it the cyber legalese, right? Like they're the ones that are auditor roles, compliance managers, right? They're managing the paperwork. They can translate what the operators are doing, right, and the administrators and the engineers, and then they're mapping that to controls, meaning industry. Hopefully we've all heard about HIPAA, right? For healthcare.
Health.
Yeah.
Health. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I can't even break it.
Protection. Health industry. What is it? Chrissy's got it.
Health Information Protection Portability Act.
Yeah, there you go. Every time you have to sign something, like it's always like when you go to the doctor, it's like, oh, and did we give you our latest HIPAA?
Yeah, right. And so that's a beautiful example. Like you have somebody who's issuing out the paper, right? And then there's a lawyer attached to somewhere there and insurance because they have to abide by it. But from a technology perspective, like who's executing, who's making sure that it's being monitored and there's no deviation from whatever the rules. And usually the manager of that is some sort of compliance, IT auditor, IT security manager of some sort. And that's why in shorthand, I'll say, legalese, right? They're not hands on keyboard, so to speak, right? They're not in the trons. They're probably drafting spreadsheets and paperwork, but they speak the dialect. And that's really the difference, because you have everything that I've just mentioned, you have varying degrees of technical aptitude, right? And not one is better than the other. It's just the lay of the land. But the whole collective, the community, is needed in order to execute something that is worth anything, right? There'll be jostling, where somebody's saying one thing and then solution is being offered elsewhere. But that's the beauty of the thing, right? You all speak the same dialect, right? Just like cybersecurity and IT speak the same language, right? But different dialects. And then it's the IT dialect, and then you have the cybersecurity dialect, which is just how many doors can you close until user stop.
So just everybody starts yelling. So analyst operators, and then you've got the maintainers, which are like your network system admins.
Yep.
Security or system admins, right? Your engineers, your architects, and then your auditors.
Yeah. Think of it as like information assurance managers, things like that, usually associated title. And they really are different because and as you start to, those that are just starting off, they start to learn the different domains, and then they start to see job postings. And obviously, as you start adding more years to your resume, you start to realize that, right? Like, what does she do, right? What do they do? And then you get a feel. Maybe you start off as an analyst operator. That's more akin to, let's say, an IT world as a yeah, like a help desk, right? Where you know the fundamentals, and then you're customer facing. Cybersecurity, you're not so much customer facing, but if you are interfacing with customers, it's usually the IT department. And then, but you have to know. Then within, let's say, each one of those domains, you have a different tiers, right?
Yeah. So let's say a help desk person for the analyst operator. Let's say and just replace your network system admin with like maybe it's a network administrator. Might be one tree, one branch that comes out of that. Then up from that, you might have a network engineer, right?
Yep.
But then also, similarly, I think you would have an auditor up from that too sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the auditor, it's like a not in a hierarchical, but they're more like an adjacent kind of
right, because they're looking at the whole. They're looking at they're trying to get a better picture for the whole. Security auditor, you might have a security auditor just like you have a finance auditor, right? Somebody who's checking the books, and a different auditor for
they're providing, everybody's providing artifact, like during the actual audit, everybody's providing artifacts to as bodies of evidence per control, right? And usually compliance is made of different families of controls. Each control is like one bullet item. It's equivalent of saying, thou shall use MFA, right? Multi-factor authentication on XYZ.
Is that important? I'm just kidding. It is important. It is important in almost every facet of IT now, isn't it?
Wherever is being applied,
Hey, this is Dana Morrison, host of the IT Path podcast, and I hope you are enjoying this week's episode. Are you interested in getting into IT? Let me ask you one simple question. What is holding you back? IT Path is dedicated to developing a community, content, and courses that will help you get unlocked and stay unlocked on your IT journey. I have more than 25 years experience in IT, and I want to share with you what I've learned and give you the tools to succeed on your very own IT path. Even if you are just starting out on your IT journey, we're here for you. To find out more, simply go to itpath.net and sign up for the mailing list, and we will start by sharing some tips, tricks, and tools to help you get going and keep you going. Go to itpath.net and claim your journey. Start your IT path today. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the episode. Yeah. Okay. We're going to have to wrap up. This has been phenomenal. Chrissy, what can somebody do right now if they were going to, if they have interest in anything that they've heard on these? I don't know how many podcast episodes I'm going to string together here, but what can they do right now? What's a step? You've heard this, all of this spiel. You've heard them talk about the cybersecurity, and you're like, oh man, that is such an interesting field. I feel something in me that's resonating with this. If you feel like that, Chrissy, speak to their heart right now. No pressure.
Anything that you need to know about anything that needs your heart go pitter-patter right now, it's on the internet. Just Google it, right? Like everything that I've ever learned through JCAC, I have a master's degree in cybersecurity as well, through my bachelor's degree, through my master's degree, through my certifications, I was able to find it on the internet, right? So if you really want to learn this stuff, if you want to be a cybersecurity person as the analyst operator, as an engineer, or you like forensics, or you like the automation thing, right? Like Google it, find it on the internet. Like I know I was bashing academia earlier, but they do have a nice framework for things that you have to learn, right? In the form of course objectives and syllabi, and you can Google those and find those.
And there's also really cheap ways now. I mean, in today's world, it's so inexpensive to get started. Udemy and all sorts of stuff.
Exactly, right? So you can Google, hey, what are the things that I need to learn to be a digital forensics analyst? right? And get that list of topics and just start Googling them and watching YouTube and actually trying it, because a lot of this stuff is open source. And you can go to GitHub and download these tools and play with them and try them. And actually this is one of the few, maybe not one of the few, but this is a career path where you can have hands-on experience at your house.
Yes.
Yes.
Build a firewall. It's like
exactly a beautiful thing. Yeah, you can build you can have your laptop and build a Linux machine. You can emulate a Mac. You can emulate a phone on your computer and play with it and do these things in these labs that are free and open source on the internet. Just try it.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you break something, then
who cares?
Google how to fix it, and then boom,
exactly.
Learn how to fix it.
Nobody dies. Nobody dies.
Okay.
So now, what do you think? Should people? I kind of say this in jest because I know what you think already, but should you go out and watch these videos about people that are reviewing certification programs?
No.
Look,
no.
Guys, you guys and ladies out there, listen. Stop watching the certification reviews. It's garbage. You guys would say that as well, right? I mean, you're just wasting your time.
Yes, undoubtedly. I hire in my other roles. I've hired, and I always tell people that I look for when you have a degree, whether it's a bachelor's, associate's, or master's, even a PhD. What it tells me is that you're able to start and finish something. That's what it tells me. But there hasn't been anybody who all they did was academia, like they went to school and then they just followed and then they clocked in, clocked out, right? Meaning they did whatever the bare minimum was, nothing outside of their degree. And they came up to me and they impressed me. And I'm not dogging nobody. It's just the fact of the matter, right? And then if they did impress me, it just so happens they just graduated. It's only because they did extra outside, and what they did extra is they learned. For me, they learned how something works. They broke it, and then they built it so that it couldn't be broken again. Right? They built something with their hands, and that's what Chris is talking about. I'll give you an example. I've hired high school students, like straight up, they just graduated, and all they have is their high school diploma. And then they moved into their 50, 60K job. Why? Is because when they submitted the resume, they told me that they worked on XYZ. One kid, he worked on this app, right? And so I told him, if you're gonna come to the interview, I said, I want to see your code, right? I thought he was gonna send me a link to like his GitHub. He literally printed it, right? He had a 3-inch binder and he printed his code, right? And then, but he delivered, right? And so I spent, almost about 10 minutes, right? Him in the same room. And I was like, okay, I'm reading through it, right? And he had it posted up on the Play Store, Google Play Store for a little bit, right? And it was just this janky app, right? It had flaws. But what it told me,
who cares? Right, exactly.
Told me is how many Google hours you spent, how many YouTube hours you spent, like learning about all these different things, even like a simple function, right? How to call upon it and then get to do whatever you're trying to do. That speaks volumes because you did something. So when we say go out and try something, right? You can build it yourself, like showcase that. If that's all you have, that's better than nothing, right? If you can't show me.
If there's two people that are coming to you and one person can't show you one thing and one person can show you one thing.
Exactly. Right. It tells me a lot because I can guesstimate how many Google hours and YouTube hours and Reddit hours that you spent trying to do this thing, even if it's not perfection, because I've done it myself. I know that it's not easy, right? And then you fail a bunch of times, and then you keep on, and then you stay up later and you take a nap, or you wake up, you're like, oh, I haven't tried this, right? That's the first thing you think about. Like I don't have a bachelor's degree, but I've been the director of R&D for a cybersecurity company. I don't have a bachelor's degree. And I've been a VP of cybersecurity engineering for a banking firm. I have my own business, and I've been an adjunct professor. I had tenacity, right? I'm not the smartest guy in the world. It's just I realized that I wanted it more, right? Like I wanted to prove, not prove to everybody else, but I wanted to prove myself that I could build these things. And then I started getting a knack for it. Like I had ideas and I started executing them. If I go for an interview or win new lines of business, I just speak to that, and it's not fluff. It's just I'm just showcasing. So the only difference between me, Chrissy, you, and anybody first starting off is that we just have more time, right? But you can execute it too. So if I have 3 examples of me building an intrusion detection systems, then and you only have 1, that's just because of time, right? And you're gonna rack that up and you start getting better at it, and that's what you're showcasing to people. Eventually, that's what is the merit, especially when you start getting to those higher.
What I hear you saying is rethink your creds.
Exactly, right?
If your creds are, I got my A+, and then I got my security plus, and then I got my network plus. When you sit down in a job interview, any of us right here on this call right now, you sat down in front of us, each one of us would be asking you, tell me about what you've done. Show me what you've done. And that is what really, that's the bucket that holds the value. A piece of paper is a piece of paper. That proves that you're a good test taker.
Exactly. Like did you know the material? One of those beautiful things, these moments, was with a student. They just finished their Net Plus and their Security Plus, right? And there's like in a month and a half time frame. And they're coming to my class and they're learning about network security, right? And let's just say, like he came, like first day, he just said, "Yeah, I already have that. I don't think I need this class." I'm like, okay. So I remember that later on in the session. So I asked, and nobody raised their hand, so I called on him. But the simple question is the same question I asked in the interview, right? And you have to know how everything works. That OSI layer, like how we started off, is in order to answer it. And if he has your Sec Plus and your Net Plus, I'm just using those same, what you memorize the definition of, I'm just using it in real world. And so it was a simple scenario. You have an attacker that has infiltrated, internal network there, and then when you trace it down, the operator finds out, the analyst finds out that there's one machine, right? There's one laptop within the network is calling out and it's creating a DNS tunnel. So a DNS is domain name service. So translating human names like google.com into IP addresses, right? And so, but that is a layer 5, right? In the OSI model. And then you have the port, those that aren't familiar, DNS is port 53. There's also this other layer. In order to get to 5, you need layer 4. And those options are either UDP or TCP. Memorization games, meaning the CompTIA exams and SANS courses, they're going to tell you memorize this, right? So 53 DNS, but very few people know that there's a layer 4. Most people say UDP, right? But there is a method for TCP. And then you also learn how IDS works. IDS sends a reject message. IPS kills traffic by sending a reject message to the source and destination to kill the traffic. But it can only do that with TCP type information. If you have DNS, that doesn't work out. So those that are first listening to this for the first time don't know that, but you learn all those definitions in Net Plus. You know that what TCP means, what it breaks out to, UDP, what port 53 is, how to spell DNS. You learn these things, and I just mashed it up into a story that is very, very common, and I'm leading you down the path. If I want to mislead you, you would use an IDS or an IPS in order to kill this traffic, right? But in order to do that, it needs to be TCP. Everything I just told you was UDP type traffic, but you need that fundamental. You have to know what they are, not just memorize it. You have to know what they are. And I've said that same scenario for like tier 3 engineers and all the way to like help desk where I'm hiring just for help desk or operators, analysts. And the only wrong answer is when you're lying and you're just making up stuff. If you don't know, that's fine.
Yeah, because you can find out.
Yeah.
And so if you recognize what you don't know, you can go look it up. But
exactly.
if you make up your answer and then you start to believe your own story, which is your own answer, and then you take action on it and you screw something up or you break something or you block it, it's still getting through. I don't know what they're doing. I don't understand.
And so if you make up your own story and you know it deep down, what you told me is that you're not going to ask for help when you need it.
Right.
So again, it goes to that community. I need to surround myself with people that aren't afraid of asking nor answering, right? So if you ask me during the interview, I don't know, how would you? And then I would give you that answer, because what you just told me is that you're not afraid to ask. You put the ego aside, right? Because you're aware of it, and then you're able to do that, and that ties into the bigger picture. Community. You want people like-minded. You want to make sure that you can get stuff done. The only way you can get stuff done is that you're not stonewalled by your own ego.
Right. Yeah. I going into my first interview, I was contracting for a school, went into my first interview, and the superintendent of the school said, do you know anything about Windows 3.11, Windows for Workgroups? Well, I knew about Windows 3.1 at the time, but Windows 3.11, I was unfamiliar, but I said, I don't know, but I can learn. He says, do you know anything about 56K frame relay, which is basically a 56K dial-up modem for your school, I'm like, I don't know, but I can learn. Do you know anything about wiring network jacks? Nope, but I can learn. And he called me back the next day, gave me the job.
Yeah.
And I did. I learned, man, I learned a ton. Every jack was wired with a screwdriver, and they didn't do it correctly, but I at least had the mental fortitude to stick with it and to be able to look up all the stuff online. I had no idea that the coloring pattern and they were wired up with the pattern of the day. I mean, it was this pattern over here and that pattern over there. And it's like, oh my goodness, what a horror show it was. But I would not trade any of that experience for anything. That was the best. LegendHasIT. What do you guys do at LegendHasIT? Give the spiel. If we got any business people that are listening in, tell us what you do. Tell us how they can get in touch with you, Rudi, and then I'll have Chrissy, you share as well how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah. So LegendHasIT, we do cybersecurity as a service, and really what sets us apart is that we've done it for our country, right? We know what good looks like. And you're not paying for a tool. You're not paying for set it, forget it. The selling point is that the same type of operation that you would get if you were a big, meaning if you're like a USAA or something, or the government, you can have too. Because the way we can do this is that we built our own tools. We've been not just the analyst operators, but we've been the engineers and architects. So we build our own tools. So from a cost savings perspective, we bring that to the table, right? When you're aggregating data, you need somewhere to store it. We built that, we maintain it. So that way we can service small to medium businesses. It doesn't have to be foreign. And then we also have we feed our R&D. All our R&D is in-house. Wherever we can, we build in-house. We have our own dedicated space for compliance, meaning rack space. And we offer this service for small and medium business. Biggest attack surface is going to be endpoints, public-facing internet, so think websites, things of that nature, applications, and their email. Like our bottom tier, right, if you will, starts off with that, and we got you covered, and it's cost effective. We don't want to work for the bigs, because when it comes down to it, those from our country, right, that are taking it in the face from the enemy are small to medium businesses. And so we want to disrupt that. We're not trying to win the biggest contract in the world. We're looking for volume, right? So whether you're at an office of 1, 2, or 30, we're your team. Like, that's when it comes down to it. Especially if, let's say you have a dedicated IT team, right? IT is not cybersecurity. And sometimes they're inundated, right? Like it's outside their scope.
You're asked to make decisions. That's the dangerous part. Like, I mean, I knew, like I was outside my my field of expertise when that computer started sniffing traffic or started doing port scans on our honeypot internally on our network. And I knew I was out of my league when it came to, oh my goodness, AWS server was compromised, and trying to figure out if any company data was, leaked during that. And I mean, I can vouch for the tools are awesome. I know my coworker Chris loves it. He goes in, he gets great reports, he takes action. We're gradually ticking up our ticking ticket. I forget which way it goes on we basically have a threat meter we're working from that we're trying to mitigate piece by piece the threats to drop the numbers.
And everything's like, it's not superficial. Like it tells a story of your environment, right? And quite frankly, you're one of our favorite customers just because like you are the IT for a significant SMB, right?
Right.
And so they have a stake, right? They're in business, they're making money, right? But you have to make it's on you and your team to make sure. So then we work in a partnership, and you speak our language, we can speak yours, and then collectively we get stuff done. And to us, that's beautiful because it's not as rigid, right? Like if we're working directly with like say the business owner, we first gauge before we actually sign anything with them is that are they willing to kind of delegate this to us, meaning cybersecurity, and that's really a maturity, right? Sometimes business owners, they even though no matter how much money they're making, right, they operate like they're operating out of the garage, not physically. It might be physically, but it's just an emotional attachment to the nitty gritty, right? And you need to delegate some of that. You can't do everything yourself. And if you reach that state of maturity, we got your back. That's when it comes, right? Yeah. So because our business model is beautiful because it is clear as day. If you fail at your business because of cybersecurity, then we fail. Like that's what it comes down to. Like it's in our best interest that you grow exponentially, because then we grow exponentially. So right. It's a beautiful thing. Like I don't have to hide that. There's no hidden fees or anything. It's just as you grow, then we grow, and then
yeah. Very good. Tell us how people get in touch with you, Rudi.
Yeah. So you go to LegendHasIT.com or .io. You go to .com currently, it'll be redirected to .io. There's a form in there sent to the info@legendhasit.io, or you can email directly at info@legendhasit.io. And then we'll reach back out to you. We have a pretty good turnaround time in the same day. And then just shoot us a question or maybe schedule a time, and we can.
Awesome.
But what you're looking for, and then go on from there.
Do either of you have any LinkedIn or social media accounts you would want to share?
Yeah, you can find me. There's also a LegendHasIT company account. And me.
So look up LegendHasIT on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So it's a big purple.
Yep. Do you use fake face? I mean, fake book? I mean.
Book of face? Yeah. No, not currently. Like we don't do any engagement via there. We just have staged. Yeah. But definitely on LinkedIn, you can reach me. So it's not Rudi, it would be Rodolfo, spelled Rodolfo. Last name Ornelas, Ornelas. And then on there, you'll see that I am the CEO of LegendHasIT.
Cool.
And see Chrissy.
Chrissy, how about you?
I am on LinkedIn as well. You can find me as Christine, as my whole real name, CHRISTINE. And then my last name right now on there is Reynolds. It's not Conklin. Conklin's my maiden name and what I go by normally, but on there it's Reynolds. And under there you'll see that I'm the chief mad scientist.
Chief Mad Scientist, and you've got creative titles, Rudi.
Yeah.
Chrissy. Or did you pick your own title, Chrissy?
No, he gave it. That's what I applied for.
All right. That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, I want to thank you both for being with us today. You, like I said, you have been so generous with your time. Really, we've been on for almost 3 hours now, and it just seems like time's just flown. So I hope you all find this engaging, entertaining. Rudi and Chrissy, thank you so much for being here today with us. And I look forward to seeing what new tools. I know you guys have confided in me a little bit, told me a little bit about something you're working on. And I'm excited to see how that develops as well. And when that goes public, that'll be fun times. Very
Most
good.
definitely. Most definitely. I appreciate you having us.
Yeah.
And then keep on with the message. I really dig the channel. So
Cool. Thank you much. Chrissy, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you. Wow. This has just been a thrill to interview Rudi and Chrissy. Their vast experience and knowledge. As I listen to these three long, it was really one 3-hour call, but broken down into these 3 segments. There's just so much in here that speaks to the heart of what's going on in IT and what's going on in the security field. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that has impacted you in a positive way. We'd love to hear from you. You can email me direct, dana@itpath.net. I hope you have an awesome day, and thank you for listening to the IT Path podcast, where we work hard to keep you on your IT journey, keep you moving, keep you going. Claim your journey. Go to itpath.net for more information. Thank you. You have been listening to the IT Path podcast. Did you like this episode? Why not subscribe and share it with others? IT Path is dedicated to helping you claim your IT journey. You can find out more at itpath.net.